My name is Claire Anderson. I'm 42 and I've spent most of my adult life as a stay-at-home mom in Denver, Colorado. From the outside, my life looked steady, even enviable: a stable marriage, an 8-year-old daughter, a safe home in the suburbs. People saw me smiling in school, drop-off, packing lunches, keeping the house running. They thought I had it all together. But inside, it felt like my body was betraying me day after day. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed with my heart pounding like a jackhammer in my chest, as if I'd just run a marathon, except I hadn't moved an inch. My mind spun like a broken record stuck on repeat. My muscles clenched so tight it felt like I'd been holding my breath underwater for too long. By morning, I was so drained it was like waking up with the flu every single day. Heavy, achy, weak, except there was no virus, just me trying to survive my own brain. Migraines would slam into me like a freight train, knocking me flat. Panic attacks would hijack me in the grocery store, leaving me gasping for air as if someone had tied a belt around my chest and pulled it tighter and tighter. I remember one afternoon standing in the kitchen with a basket of laundry. Out of nowhere, my vision blurred and my hands went numb. I dropped the clothes on the floor, clutching the counter just to stay upright. In that moment, I thought, this is it. I'm about to collapse in front of my child. For years, I told myself it was weakness, that I just needed to try harder. But the truth was, I was crumbling piece by piece, day after day, while still forcing a smile for everyone else. Finally, sitting in a psychiatrist's office with my hands trembling in my lap, I braced for judgment. Instead, the doctor looked at me and said gently,
normal.
"Claire,
And that's
your
perfectly
brain
normal.
works differently.
We can talk
You're
through this
not
together."
broken. This is ADHD that's never been treated." And just like that, I broke. Tears poured down my face.
I just feel so relieved.
But this time it wasn't shame, it was relief. For the first time in my life, someone had given me an answer. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't crazy. My suffering had a name. That moment was my aha. Most nights felt like a hurricane had blown through my house. The sink piled high with dirty dishes, laundry still wet in the washer, dinner cold and untouched on the table. I'd sit at the kitchen counter staring at the mess, completely paralyzed, no clue where to start. My daughter Lily, just 8 years old, sat at the table sobbing over 2 pages of math homework. 2 pages. We'd been at it for 3 hours. My patience snapped and I yelled. The look on her face crushed me because I saw myself in her, a little girl drowning in chaos with no one who understood. My chest tightened like someone was cinching a belt around my ribs. My heart pounded so loud, it felt like the whole house could hear it. I slumped back, whispering to myself, "Just push through. Tomorrow will be better." But tomorrow never came. People on the outside never saw the weight I was carrying. As a military wife, I was terrified that if I went to a psychiatrist, it might tank my husband's career. Who's gonna trust an officer with a wife who's crazy, I'd think. So I swallowed it all down and plastered on a smile. Every time I forgot a parent-teacher meeting, missed a bill, or couldn't pull together lunch for Lily, I'd call myself lazy, useless, broken. What I didn't know back then was that ADHD brains don't run on try harder. Scientists have found that ADHD is tied to low dopamine and norepinephrine brain chemicals that control focus, motivation, and emotional regulation. No wonder even basic stuff like answering an email or folding laundry felt like climbing a mountain. Years of constant stress only made things worse. My body was stuck in survival mode, pumping out cortisol like a broken faucet. That's why I woke up exhausted every day, why my migraine slammed into me like a freight train, and why anxiety attacks felt like I was suffocating. This wasn't weakness. My body was screaming for help. Depression crept in quietly, like fog rolling into a valley. The things that once made me happy, cooking for my family, decorating for the holidays, laughing with neighbors, now felt heavy like dragging sandbags. I started avoiding texts, dodging calls, shutting myself in the laundry room, sitting on the cold floor surrounded by unfolded clothes, too drained to move. Day after day, I wasn't living anymore. I was just existing. And then came the week that proved I wasn't fine. My phone kept buzzing with emails from Lily's school science fair project due in 2 months forgotten. Sign up for 48 cupcakes for the bake sale forgotten. Permission slips, field trip forms. Spirit Week crazy hair day dentist appointments. Car registration insurance renewals. I kept thinking I'll get to it tomorrow. 6 weeks passed. I touched none of it, and suddenly everything was due. Panic set in like a tidal wave. I stayed up all night gluing together Lily's volcano project for the science fair, burning my fingers with the hot glue gun. I baked 48 cupcakes only to remake them because one kid had a nut allergy I'd forgotten about. At 2 a.m., I was hanging posters, folding laundry, wrapping teacher gifts, scribbling reminders on my arm so I wouldn't forget, and still forgetting. By the third night with no real sleep, my body gave out. My legs swelled, my hands trembled, my head throbbed like a jackhammer. At one point, I collapsed face first on the kitchen table, surrounded by permission slips, and passed out. Later, a doctor would explain, when you're chronically sleep deprived, your brain stops making enough melatonin, dopamine, and serotonin, the very chemicals that regulate focus, mood, and calm. The prefrontal cortex, the part that handles logic and planning, basically goes dark. The amygdala, the panic center, takes over the wheel. In simple terms, ADHD plus no sleep meant my brain was driving through a thunderstorm with no headlights, bald tires, and a cracked windshield. The next morning was bake sale day and science fair day. I was running late juggling boxes when one of the cupcake trays slipped from my hands in the school parking lot. The lid popped open and cupcakes rolled across the asphalt. Other moms froze. A few offered polite, pitying smiles. I forced a laugh. It's fine, but my throat tightened and shame burned hot in my chest. It got worse. That afternoon, I forgot pickup. When I sprinted into the school office, Lily was the last kid sitting there clutching her backpack red-eyed from crying. The secretary said kindly, "It happens to everyone, don't worry." But in my head, all I heard was worst mom ever. On the drive home, Lily whispered, "Mom, did you forget me?" I nodded, still shaking. I'd promised myself I'd hold it together. But the truth was, I wasn't holding anything together. Not my emotions, not my sleep, not even my brain. That night, I cried so hard it felt like a rope was tightening around my chest. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape my ribcage, and my head buzzed like a broken radio. I kept whispering to myself, "Calm down, try harder, get it together." But deep down, I knew this wasn't about trying harder. This was my body waving a white flag. That night, with cupcakes scattered on the pavement and my daughter waiting alone at school, was my breaking point. It was the moment I realized I couldn't keep going like this. I needed real answers. After that breaking point, cupcakes splattered on the pavement, my daughter waiting alone at school, I knew I couldn't keep white-knuckling my way through life anymore. So I finally picked up the phone and called my primary care doctor. She referred me to a psychiatrist. Sitting in that office, my hands trembling, I spilled out the years of chaos, the forgotten bills, the panic attacks in grocery stores, the nights I stayed up scrubbing the kitchen floor at 3 a.m. because my brain refused to shut off. The psychiatrist asked me to write a timeline of my symptoms all the way back to high school, losing assignments, zoning out in class, forgetting sleepovers, crying at the smallest things, bouncing between bursts of energy, and days I couldn't get out of bed. When she leaned back and said, "Claire, this isn't about weakness. You've been living with untreated adult ADHD and the depression that comes with it." I felt my chest crack open, finally a name for the monster I'd been wrestling in the dark. She told me straight, "There's no quick fix. This is a marathon, not a sprint, but we'll take it step by step." We started with a low-dose antidepressant and weekly CBT therapy. It wasn't a miracle. The first weeks were messy. Some days I still ended up crying in the laundry room. But slowly, things shifted. The first time I slept through the night 6 hours straight, without jolting awake, I cried in the morning not from exhaustion, but because I had forgotten what real rest even felt like. Once my mood wasn't swinging like a wrecking ball and my sleep was a little more consistent, she added a low-dose stimulant. It didn't cure me, nothing does, but it gave me a little clarity, like turning on a flashlight in a dark room. Starting tasks wasn't easy, but it didn't feel like shoving a boulder uphill anymore. Medication helped, but the real shift came from learning how to work with my brain instead of against it. Pick 3 big things to do each day. Not 10, not 20, just 3. Use the Pomodoro timer, 25 minutes of focus, 5 minutes of rest. Create stations in the house for keys, backpacks, and mail so I'd stop losing everything. Block off 30 minutes every morning to step outside, breathe in fresh air, and move my body a brisk walk around the block, stretching or yoga. Science shows even 20 minutes of movement boosts dopamine and serotonin, the same brain chemicals ADHD struggles to regulate. Swap out sugar-filled breakfast for protein-rich meals, eggs, Greek yogurt, or smoothies to avoid that mid-morning crash that always made my ADHD worse. Cut back on afternoon caffeine and added a magnesium supplement at night to help my body unwind and sleep deeper. The psychiatrist looked me in the eye and said, "Structure isn't punishment. It's freedom for your brain." For the first time, I believed it. This wasn't an overnight transformation. There were still days when I stumbled, when the shame whispered that I was failing all over again. But this time, I had tools. I had support. And most importantly, I had hope, something I hadn't felt in years. Even with treatment, life didn't magically snap into place. I wasn't suddenly the mom with a spotless kitchen and perfectly packed lunches. There were still mornings when I'd realize I'd left the wet laundry in the washer overnight, or when Lily would ask for help with homework and my chest would tighten like a vice. But now, instead of drowning in shame, I had a map. Therapy taught me to catch the storm in my head before it turned into a hurricane. Medication gave me enough breathing room to pause, take a deep breath, and decide my next step. And the structure I'd built, baskets by the door for keys and backpacks, alarms, pinging on my phone like little lifelines, kept me from spinning out. Instead of journaling, I started recording voice memos at night. Just me sitting in the dark of my minivan in the driveway, whispering into my phone. Today was brutal, but I survived. Today Lily hugged me out of nowhere. Maybe I'm not messing this up as bad as I think. Hearing my own voice, shaky, tired, but honest, made me feel less like I was screaming into the void. It wasn't about fixing myself anymore. It was about finally understanding my brain and giving it what it needed to function. ADHD depression. ADHD is a lifelong brain difference. Depression often comes in episodes but gets worse if ADHD is untreated. Treat in the right order. Doctors often stabilize depression and sleep first before treating ADHD. Medication, magic. Think of meds like glasses. They help you see clearly, but they don't change who you are. The more I learned, the more I started softening toward myself. For decades, I thought I was just lazy or broken. Now I knew my brain was simply wired differently, and that was okay. ADHD didn't make me a bad mom. Depression didn't mean I was weak. They just meant I needed different tools. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. If you're reading this and you're so tired you can't even see a way out, hear me. You don't have to do this alone. There is a way forward, and it doesn't start with overhauling your whole life. It starts with just one brave step, one phone call. Here's the roadmap I wish someone had handed me years ago. Call your primary care doctor or a therapist this week, even if your voice shakes. Write down your symptoms all the way back to your teenage years. The patterns matter. Talk openly about depression first. Stabilize your mind before tackling focus. Create a simple sleep-work routine. Protect your rest like your life depends on it, because it does. Find an ADHD support group. Hearing me too can change everything. Repeat this truth every day. I'm not broken. I just need a plan that fits my brain. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through life anymore. You deserve tools, not shame. You deserve rest. You deserve joy. That's why I share my story here on The Truth MD, because I never want another mom, dad, or adult out there to feel as alone as I once did. If this resonated with you, subscribe, share it with a friend, and help us build a space where no one feels broken for having a different kind of brain. Your healing starts now, and this time you don't have to do it by yourself.